Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Book Club. I am still not in the right room, so I apologize for the backlight. Just going to have to deal with it. This week, or this month rather, on Comic Book Club, we're discussing X-Men, God Loves, Man Kills. Joining me today, I have Terry.
Hi.
And Robert Emmett.
Hashtag free Batman's penis.
Well, we're not talking about Batman's penis today. We'll do a special episode of Comic Book Club just on Batman's penis. That's a thing that'll happen, I promise.
Our most viewed.
Yeah, probably. So yes, just want to say off the bat, in case people don't know, Comic Book Club is a show that anyone can join anytime they feel like it. All you need is a legal copy of the book, a microphone and headphones. A webcam is preferred, and you can join the discussion. I want to make sure people know that. So anyway, yeah, by popular vote, we are discussing X-Men, God Loves, Man Kills. Now, can I assume both of you voted for this or no?
Yes.
Okay, Terry?
I kind of forgot to vote this time, so I didn't vote for anything.
Then you can't complain.
No, I'm glad that this one came up because you had spoken about it before and I'd never read it before. So this was the first time I got to read it. And I was kind of blown away. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is kind of the X-Men story. This was like written to be the X-Men story that kind of touched on everything that X-Men is. And it's got a lot of shocking imagery to it. The panel on the back of the collection I have, is like it kind of shows a mock lynching. And it really does play up with the ideas of the X-Men as the minority. So like you've got Mike Pence here, pointing to Nightcrawler, and he's like, "Human, you dare call that thing human?" There's like, this is kind of the book for X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah, to the point that the first two movies drew heavily on it, from what I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is probably the page count wise the lightest book we've ever had, but it's also one of the heaviest in a lot of respects. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, for starters, it's a very wordy book. Like, nowadays this would be a 6 to 12 issue arc.
Yeah.
And it would probably have the same amount of dialogue. But man, it really is kind of the I'm gonna have trouble thinking of, like, in terms of like quintessential X-Men stories going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have difficulty not just thinking about this.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, because just so much of it is just, this was written to be the thing that kind of encapsulated the X-Men. It's meant to be a 1-2 punch of this, the X-Men, this what they're all about. So we've got like all the politics stuff, we've got the team dynamic action stuff. It's of course written by Claremont, who was on X-Men for decades, literally decades. And then it's got, kind of the bigoted villain, the Magneto team up, reluctantly. And then there's just some like really freaky ass imagery. I gotta find the whole scene where Professor X is being crucified, because that shit was bananas. That was a hard scene to read, because just, man. Yeah, that whole section there where he's being brainwashed and imagining himself being crucified and murdered over and over again by the different X-Men. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, like, part of me really... They wouldn't have done this because Bryan Singer is a very visually uninteresting director. Is that fair to say? I think so. He's a very visually uninteresting director, so I don't think he ever would have actually, like, done anything like this
Mm-hmm.
in his own, and he had the perfect conceit to do it with the Jason, the
Oh,
illusionist.
the kid with the
Yeah,
two different color
yeah,
eyes. Yeah.
weird eyes. He had the perfect conceit to get away with weird, fucked up imagery like this, and then he just goes for Professor X in the X Mansion. Like
Mm-hmm.
it would have been really
I,
cool to actually to do if you had done stuff like this in it, and then like okay, he winded up not doing X3 anyway, so it's irrelevant. But you could have like in X3, you could have actually dealt with maybe that actually really did traumatize Xavier to a degree, and it could like affect his decision making in that film or whatever. You could actually do
Mm-hmm.
something very interesting in one of those movies with shock and awe. Maybe Professor Xavier being a character and not a plot device.
Fair.
I think they're the first two. To be honest, I don't want to praise Bryan Singer too much because after all of these things I can't talk about him. But I think the first two films did handle the themes quite well of like the X-Men and the scene that you're talking about in the book. It's not that I'm glad it wasn't in the films, but I think at the time it would have been maybe like too distracting or too overbearing for like general audiences at that time before they were inundated in all the superhero stuff. So having a scene where he's like literally crucified and all of this stuff in a big fantastical sequence, I think it would have been a bit much, and maybe people like the layman or the general audiences would have just, I don't know, they wouldn't really be thinking about the meaning of the scene. They'll just be looking at it on the surface, and it would just be, I don't know, they wouldn't take away the right message, I think. So I kind of like how grounded and yeah, I like how grounded the first two films were, despite being an X-Men fan and not being a fan of how grounded the films are overall.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a bit of a contradiction, but it's for two different reasons why I'm saying that. Just as a film, I think they work. I think the first two films work quite well. As an X-Men superhero fan, that's a different discussion.
Yeah, like in the context of its own piece, it does work. But like, I personally feel like that, like if you'd thrown some, Passion of the Christ-like imagery
Passion
with
of the Xavier.
Passion of the
Yeah,
Xavier,
would be
like
powerful. Yeah,
Xavier stuff like that would have been like, although that like
yeah,
probably would have winded up getting it like a they probably would have winded up
R
getting it
rating.
that R rating or something for it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I love how like brutal it is, and just the X-Men's powers are kind of utilized in a really interesting way in that scene. Like Storm shocks him with lightning. Kitty Pryde goes all Kali Ma and pulls out his heart in front of him. I really like those. That's just kind of cool. Nightcrawler's all like a vampire. It's just a really, really interesting scene. But I mean, a lot of this stuff are really interesting scenes.
Like Wolverine disembowels him. Like
Yeah.
you have to squint to make it out, but you could totally see his like Xavier's intestines just falling out.
There's that, and then there's just other like really trippy, super dark shit in this. Like Stryker's origin is straight up terrifying. His wife has a baby on the side of the road. It's a mutant, and he murders it and her. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
I have a theory though that I would like to discuss about that, and I can't find the page.
The flashback page where it's Stryker talking about his thing. Yeah, it's right after the Passion of the Xavier.
Passion of the Xavier. Can we agree that we're just going to call it that from now on?
Dr. Holocron in the comments has said Passion of the Charles. I'm not sure which is better.
Okay, so
yeah, those pages are horrifying.
Yeah, so he's talking about how he was on special assignment to the military nuclear test program The brass told him danger was minimal. We believed them. When the tour was over, my wife Marcy and I headed south to visit the family in Phoenix, and then they were in a car crash. So like he was stationed somewhere where they were doing like nuclear tests and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like my theory is because he just says, "Oh, I saw the baby and it was a monster," and he had no idea about mutants until he says he has no idea about mutants until years later when he's Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
And and he's talking about how like, oh yeah, that's what the baby was. It was a mutant. My theory is that the baby wasn't a mutant. It was just sort of had a birth defect as a result of the nuclear testing.
See, I get where you'd come from with that, but I think a lot of things have kind of established that the X-Men are a result of the nuclear age. But like even in the films, that kind of got played with.
But also mutant powers don't manifest until puberty, and often,
unless you're like Nightcrawler.
But they're often like invisible as well. So like, I think there's a really strong implication that the baby just had some sort of birth defect. He overreacted, killed the thing, and then years later was like, no, that's what it is. That's what it was. And he's is it projecting is the term I'm looking for?
Mm-hmm.
He's just projecting onto that, and he's latching onto something to hate.
Maybe I could see that. I don't know. For me, I think the story works a bit stronger if the child was actually a mutant. Terry, what's your opinion on all that?
Yeah, to be honest, that didn't come into my mind at all. Like first of all, I was just so horrified by the page, horrified and amazed at how amazing it was. I don't think that is like an interesting idea, and it does work. But I think the way I took it was just on the surface, like it was a mutant, it was a monster to him. Because the thing that stands out on that page to me isn't even the fact that the baby was a mutant, and I think, the fact that they didn't even show the baby, I think adds to the idea, because you're not really supposed to dwell on what type of monster is the baby. It's the fact that he saw the baby, it was a monster, and his next thought was to kill his wife. Before even handing her the baby, he delivered the baby and then he killed his wife. And then after that, there's no discussion of him really. It doesn't seem like he regrets it. It's like he's just obsessed with the idea that he just hates mutants. It's like I couldn't believe this when I read it. It was like he killed his wife. His baby was a mutant, but this whole scene, the pages after that, and his whole character in the book, it's like he's just obsessed with I don't know, just getting rid of the mutants, divine retribution or whatever. It's like the baby being a mutant is not even important. Like it just, I don't even know if I'm answering your question anymore. But it's like the baby being a mutant or not, to me is like, I don't know. It's like almost.
I mean, you're right. It definitely informs Stryker as a villain because he's literally a baby killer either way. So I thought that was really interesting. Something that I want to talk about is kind of a discussion on how much rope do you give something like this, and so I found it kind of interesting. So kind of infamously, and I was just talking with Ruben about this the other night, but kind of infamously, Kitty Pryde drops the N-bomb in this book.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that moment works and is a justified or fair use of it, and we can discuss that too. Given the context of the story and the point Claremont's trying to make with the X-Men here. But I tend to have reservations about that as I read on, and then we have, Kitty kind of just coming across random street gang who all happen to be, African American, Hispanic, something like that.
Except there is one who has like a
turban on, yeah,
and like he's like Hispanic Arab, maybe. I don't know. I'm confused. What is this?
Yeah,
well, they're not white. That's the idea, I guess.
Yeah, like that's the thing is like, and it's one of those things I was talking about. Like, is it wrong to show a gang on film? Of course not. Is it wrong to show a gang of people of color on film? No, not really. It's just, are you adding to a perception of color equaling criminal, or are you making a point with it? Are you actually thinking about what you're doing, or are you just adding into the implicit bias? And so I kind of wonder about that with Claremont in this, is like, he's clearly thinking about these issues of inequality and bigotry, civil rights, stuff like that, and paralleling them with mutants. But I wonder if he's kind of falling into implicit bias in scenes like that, and if that means that he didn't do enough thinking on it.
It would be good to get a look at the script to actually see if in descriptions of this panel, if he actually did describe ethnic groups, or if that was maybe, like, I don't mean to point fingers, but if maybe that was like a miscommunication.
No, I think he definitely did, because there's some of them are speaking like Spanish in between some of their speech.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's clear.
Hermanos and Chica, and there's a lot of language there that is okay, all right.
Going back to the
I'm being silly.
No. If it wasn't for those lines, though, you would be thinking, oh, why did you have to make them people of color? And the question is still there. And I don't know. So it is a bit messy. Because I just wanted to say, like, when I saw you review the book before, and then I heard about the use of the words, that was one of the things that intrigued me the most. But then when I read the book opens up with 2 young black kids being killed. That's like the very first thing that happens. And then it's Magneto who kind of finds them straight after. That really struck me straight away, because I was like, okay. First of all, I just want to say I'm one of the people who, before this book especially, not especially, but I don't like the whole metaphor of mutants and black people or gays or whatever, especially like black people and stuff like that. Only because it's like mutants have powers and stuff like that. Like Cyclops can kill people. I'm not gonna kill someone. So it's like, I don't necessarily like equating it, but I know that the metaphor it kind of goes beyond that. And then but it's like a messy metaphor. But reading this book, I thought it was quite interesting, because they, I feel like they do handle the topic. Well, to me, they handled it well, and Kitty's use of the word was, I think it was. I can't speak for everyone, but I think.
No, you are here to represent all black people in the entire world.
And I'm not even American, so I can't represent African Americans, because it's a whole different thing. But it surprised, like, and I don't really like saying it either, but obviously I say it to other black people. But I don't know, this, like, when she said it, I thought it was a great scene. And the question you asked before we brought this up is like, who exactly are we questioning? Are we questioning the writer for putting it in, or Kitty Pryde? Like, why is she the type of person to say it? And in terms of the writer putting it in, I say he kind of makes up for it because because of the first scene especially, and because of the the context of the scene when she said it, and a few other things in the book. Like he's not a well, I don't know the guy. Maybe he was a racist. He's I don't know. He's tackling the subject like in an interesting way. He's really hammering home that these mutant hunters are the monsters, and they're very religious as well. So that's a whole nother thing that you're bringing into this. Like they're not just mutant haters. They're like religious mutant haters. So what is that saying about these religious people as well? And then Magneto is like the savior, angel, divine person who's floating through this book, and he's obviously like a mutant supremacist or whatever. So it's a lot of like crisscrossing of ideas in here. So for someone, I think, to complain about Kitty doing that thing, saying the word, I think is a bit. I would tell them to relax, to be honest, because it's
yeah, like to pay attention.
Yeah.
Like if you do pay attention to the context in which the word is used, it's not like, oh, it's not for shock value. It's not for.
Well, it is kind of. I don't know. Sorry.
It's not, oh, sorry. It's not. I don't really see it as being for shock because it's addressing. It's addressing the hurtful power the word has.
Yeah.
In relation to another slur. So, like, Kitty Pryde is Jewish, so you could easily replace the kid who's calling her a mutie lover. You could easily replace it with. You could easily replace mutie with any slur for Jewish people, and like you know whatever. I don't know that many Jewish slurs.
I've got a book here. Let me just.
So, like, I've been watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they have like a running gag where they talk whether or not it's okay to use the word Jew if you're referring to a Jewish person. And I was like, what? Wait, well, I never thought of it that way. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, there's all these. So. You easily could rewrite the scene where he's calling Kitty Pryde any slur for Jewish people, and that scene could still be written mostly the same. Suppose he called me a N-word lover. You know?
No, you're right. It's definitely just about the power of words in that scene, the destructive power of words in particular. And so I find that really interesting. My wider point is just that he's doing all these things with the ideas of racial inequality, with the ideas of bigotry, and then he kind of, I don't feel like it's an intentional choice to make the street gang that wants to rape Kitty Pryde. I don't think it's like intentional or adding anything to the story to make them Hispanic or black, wherever they're supposed to be. I feel like it's just kind of, that feels like the kind of thing you'd see in like a police procedural from like the mid 90s, early 2000s. Just like, she runs into the street gang and they're all, you know, Hispanic or whatever, or they're all black or whatever, and she's a white girl, so she's in trouble. It feels very like thoughtlessly they're just part of the unfortunate narrative that we're used to in media, portraying people that way. And it's not like it would be as big a deal if not for a couple things. One, the context of just the story we're telling kind of makes it stand out more and makes you go, okay, now did he think about this or not? But then the deeper thing is, I didn't know Kitty Pryde was Jewish, for one. if you made these guys white supremacist gangs, it would add even more to the message of the book.
Okay. Can I want to talk about the day I actually got this book.
Okay.
The day this book arrived at my comic shop and I picked it up, I read like 2 pages of it. And then I didn't have time to read the rest because I had to go meet my friend. Because we were going to the movies. And the movie we went to see was The Black Klansman.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it was a great movie, and I was very uncomfortable through a lot of parts in it. But
yeah, as you should.
On the ride home, I was reading this, and like I was really getting, like, off a Stryker, I was getting massive David Duke vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the way he uses scripture to justify hatred, and how fervently he seems to believe his own logic. It's actually really, really terrifying, because I was reading this for the first time, having just sort of, granted through the lens of film, through sort of a not fictionalized, but somewhat embellished recounting of history. I had just kind of witnessed that, oh crap, there is people like this out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found was the most terrifying about it, was the fact that, like, take away the mutant angle, and like there's probably someone in a room full of people right now saying the exact same shit that Stryker is saying about mutants to people in the real world about black people or Jewish people or Hispanics and Mexicans,
or
just, or gays, like, and I come from the background of being a straight white guy, so I have never had to deal with this. For which I suppose I'm grateful, but like, at the same time, I'm absolutely revolted.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I have never experienced, and yet I can't wrap my head around it.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, no, you're onto it though. I think that's what makes Stryker such a frightening villain in this. I mean, like, like, how do you make a guy scarier after you see him, like, kill a baby, and you just make him say absolutely horrific shit and make him unrepentant? And really, like, that's Mike Pence, and there he is saying that human, you dare call that thing human. So Stryker becomes significantly more terrifying as just a villain. And honestly, like, I like him in X2, but damn, comic book Stryker, as far as this being the only thing I've read for him, is so much more fucking scary. And it's very genuinely easy to get invested and frightened by the kind of person that you're seeing here. I agree.
Sorry about my camera. I'm having a few technical issues there.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
Can I go back to the gang for a minute? I just wanted to say, like, I think that I'm glad that the gang weren't a bunch of white supremacists, white guys in a way, because I think the whole book adds a bit of like ambiguity to it. Like it's not pushing too hard in one direction, saying like this is what we're saying is right. This is well, I guess they are, but it just adds a bit of grey to it because remember earlier I said I don't like the whole metaphor of black people and mutants and anyway. So already going into the book, I've got like a conflict when I'm reading it because I'm thinking like, okay, this is ridiculous. You can't equate one thing to another. But having but the way they're doing it in context, it kind of works. But by having a gang who aren't a bunch of white guys, I feel like it's kind of like I don't know, in a way it's just reminding you that like I don't know, everyone is
that people are problematic, that people can be evil. It doesn't have to be just about race or one thing, and that's definitely true. It's weird because anytime I talk about stuff like this, the portrayal of race and human evil or whatever, it begins to walk a really funny line because like I want, let's just go with black people for the hell of it. I want like black actors to be able to do a wide range of roles, and that includes I want good villains, right? I want a superhero movie with a black lead villain that is a damn good performance, and that's what we got with like Killmonger or whatever. But I also like when you choose to place a character as the villain and choose to cast someone, it is worth considering what the context of what you're doing is and if it has a racial stereotype dynamic to it. And so it's not that you can't do it, and it's not that you even have to address it. I just think it's worth thinking about and considering, because otherwise you can have moments that can kind of feel a little weird and a little in reaction to. And so it's just stuff like that. Like it's never a requirement. It's never like a blanket, oh, this just can't be or whatever. It's just feel free to do it. Just I want to make sure you're actually thinking about it. And because I'm going to think about it. So that's kind of where I come down on it.
As long as you think through the implications of what you're writing, and you're clever about it, you can definitely go about that way.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and transition a little bit here. What do you guys think of Magneto's portrayal throughout this story?
I absolutely loved Magneto in this book. I've liked Magneto before, but I haven't put him up on my top list. But this book really made me love him a lot. Only because this is going to sound weird, but when I read this book, I kind of see him like as an angel, like a literal angel, who's like not really, like kind of like the Phantom Stranger, if you know who that is as well. Like I feel like he's not really a part of the book. He's just there to like literally float through the pages, show us some of the injustices that happen, and comment on it, and like intervene like on an occasion and talk to the X-Men and kind of help out and stuff, but from their periphery. Like he's like the representation of the injustices that the mutants are facing, and he's there to kind of like save them and protect them from further harm. But at the same time, he's Magneto. He's a mutant supremacist. He's super powerful. He's
violent.
He's like a villain. Yeah, he's a villain. He's crazy. But every time he showed up in this, I was like almost like praising, like thank God, he's here. And it's like
I also really like that he genuinely joins the X-Men, and they're working together, not against each other, and they're so much better for it. I really like that, and it's just super interesting when you get to the end of this, and Charles is like, I honestly don't think I can have this pacifist philosophy anymore. I can't be peaceful. I think I should join Eric. And Eric's like, fucking finally, bitch. And then it's Scott that has to kind of talk him down and get him, back to his roots. And so,
which is ironic. Consider like where X-Men comics are at the moment.
I don't know enough about current X-Men to really speak on that.
Scott basically became the new Magneto.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's just it's really touching to see their dynamic. This sequence of panels I thought was really, really good as they literally reach out for each other and Charles pulls away. I thought that was pretty good.
Amazing.
About Magneto's portrayal in this, I do like when Magneto is a bit more complex than simply being, mutants shall inherit the Earth simply because we are superior, due to power. Might makes right. This is a little bit more. It's still got like shades of that, but it's a bit more nuanced. Like if I'll just
because it's not about that. I don't think it's about. He has that, but in this book, it's not necessarily about the supremacy. It's about just the injustice and
I am not your enemy, X-Men, nor do I consider you mine. True, my goal has ever been the conquest of Earth, but solely to create a world where our race, Homo Superior, can live in peace. And then later he's like, I have seen my family butchered by... do not take that tone with me, boy. I have lived under a dictatorship and seen my family butchered by its servants. When I rule, it will be for the betterment of all. Contentment breeds tranquility, discontent rebellion. Therefore, I shall ensure the one by eliminating the root causes of the other: hunger, poverty, disease, war. The freedoms lost will not be noticed, even the most libertarian of states, and the material benefits shall more than balance the scales. So, like, I do like the idea of a Magneto who, I do like the idea of a Magneto who wouldn't subjugate humanity. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't want to push humanity down. I want to raise mutants up. But there is a flaw in how he always goes about doing it, and he doesn't seem to notice that he is unintentionally doing to humanity what humanity is doing to mutants. And he doesn't like, like, I like it when it's written more of a tunnel vision kind of thing, where he doesn't there's one, what's the one where Magneto does attack humans, but he's often attacking, I don't remember which run this was in, but he doesn't attack human civilians. He attacks military outposts and specifically ones that are working on anti-mutant technology. He is performing preemptive strikes and stuff like that. And the only downside is he can be a bit careless in regards to casualties and stuff like that, civilian casualties, and that's a take on Magneto that works, but also just full blown. He stared into the pit and became that which he hates. He's 2 steps shy of Hitler, mutant Hitler. He becomes that which he hates the most. That also works, and that's why I think Magneto is actually such a great villain, in that you can do him as both the megalomaniac, and you can do him as a more subtle, more righteous figure, and in some cases even a protagonist, and they all work.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. I don't know. I have really complicated feelings on Magneto. Steve and I did a Geeky Gentleman on him at one point, and he's just
before this.
Yeah, that's cool. He's just a really inconsistently written character, because I feel like a lot of people will write him in a way that just like he's just evil. There's really no getting around it. He's just kind of accepted being evil, and his plans just you can't even really make a case for them being justified when he's like his plans just include genocide, like in X2. But then there's other times where it's like, yeah, he's really got a point, and the thing he's doing right now, like in Days of Future Past, where he's killing the guy with the genocide robots, yeah, you know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
So I tend to see him really inconsistently written.
Like X1's kind of like, I am going to try and like further our cause in the way that causes the least harm.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I'm still messing with people's genetics, and I don't know this thing's killing people, but but then you get to X2, he doesn't like start the genocide thing. He simply
he doesn't start it, but he damn sure plans to finish
tries to finish it. Like, but, like, I mean, it's kind of like at that point I was like, I can see the wheels turning in his head of, right, I tried to be nice, but y'all motherfuckers, you went too far. I'm playing by your rules now. And I think that's actual dialogue. He's like, they're not playing by your rules. Time to play by theirs. Yeah, that's actual dialogue.
Yeah.
God, I love Ian McKellen. I missed the opportunity to meet Ian McKellen once. He was doing a guest lecture at my university, and I didn't know you needed tickets for it.
Oh, that's too bad. Terry, you looked like you were going to say something a minute ago.
Yeah, so about Magneto, and for reference, I'll use one of the best issues of Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force, which is an issue where Magneto goes to Wolverine, and he tells him you find out that he told him to kill a Nazi from World War II who I guess did stuff to him or his family, and he's literally there pleading with him. I don't know how well you can see, or you probably can't see it. His expression, it's just so, he's just like almost begging Wolverine to do this for him because he can't do it himself. He can't go and kill this guy. Because I just wanted to say, like, I don't think he's a monster when he's written well, because I think what makes Magneto a great character is that he's a great example. He's very human. It's a great example of what trauma can do to people, and what it can possibly drive them to do, and how it can mess you up. Because he, like, I've called him a mutant supremacist, and you've spoken about how he's like genocidal and stuff like that. And he's obviously somewhat justified in terms of his liberation of mutants, and he does go too far in his actions, and I think he does know it, but it's because of what he went through. Not even as a mutant, what he went through just as like a Jewish guy in World War II or whatever, and that directly pushed him over the edge, and that's what makes him such a monster and makes him commit evil acts. Like I don't know. Well, this is a weird thing. I don't know if you can call someone evil necessarily if they do evil things. I guess it is like an easy way to say yes or no. Yeah. But since we know his backstory, it's much more. It's not quite black and white. And this issue of Uncanny X-Force is a great example, because he found a Nazi who was hiding from him, and instead of like going there and ripping him limb from limb, he he couldn't do it. He had to ask Wolverine to do it because it's a different type of this is a different type of injustice that he faced. This has nothing to do with him being a mutant, so he couldn't like he couldn't face this guy.
So,
he couldn't
like,
maybe
Magneto does not have any cause to kill this man, but little Eric, little boy who was in the camps, that's who has a beef with it, because there's kind of like the sort of, I like the sort of mentality of like in the like when Magneto becomes a mutant, that is what defines his his identity moving forward. Like, and the Holocaust survivor stuff is more of a, it's like a cautionary tale from his past, but it's sort of like there's almost like a mental separation between those two different points in his life. You know, like he's just such an interesting character. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, my favorite scene in any of the X-Men movies is the, ironically from not one of the best ones, when his family dies in Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, it's tragic ass scene.
Oh, okay.
All right, what else with this? Because we're getting close to needing to wrap up here. What did you guys think of the portray? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something, Robert?
Yeah, I was just wondering because this came out in the 80s, yes?
I want to say 80s or 90s. It'd be late 80s, early 90s.
Late 80s.
Is the range.
Would it be set? Because this is like this was originally meant to be out of continuity. I found that out when I read the back of it.
Oh, really?
It was originally meant to be out of continuity, and it was kind of like it could have been. There's an explanation in the back I can't actually find, but there's an interview with Chris Claremont where he's like, he kind of wanted to encapsulate everything about the X-Men in one sort of graphic novel format. And would it be fair to say this is is Marvel's? Would it be fair to say this is Marvel's equivalent of The Killing Joke?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Like, I got to tell you, I think I liked this just as much as I liked The Killing Joke when I first read it, except I think maybe this, is just maybe just a slightly bit more thoughtful.
Wait, sorry. What do you mean?
Although it has similar problems in terms of holding up, just due to some outdated attitudes.
Sorry. Do you mean Killing Joke is like DC's best book or something?
In
kind of like the
way in which like you can read it and you kind of get Batman and Joker's relationship just from one standalone thing, and like you can read this and you kind of get just about a little bit of everything about the X-Men.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's definitely, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is written for that purpose. This is written to be the X-Men story. And it's 1982. Apparently, it's when this was at least started. So I don't know. It's hard to compare things like that, but I definitely see what you're trying to say, and personally, I don't know enough about the X-Men to say how well this encapsulates it, because I've heard Terry mention in this episode, and I've heard other people say that like the minority viewpoint thing is definitely there in X-Men, but it's not as prevalent as a lot of media and a lot of people tend to think it is. And so it might be unfair to assume you can read this and this is the kind of attitude you're going to see in a lot of X-Men stories.
Yeah.
So, like, the thing about Killing Joke is, yeah, the Joker escapes from Arkham, does messed up stuff, hurts Batman personally, makes a point that's kind of scary and sticks with you, is darkly funny the whole time, and then Batman just has no choice but to take him back to Arkham and start the cycle all over again,
Or does
depending on how you read the ending. Whereas this, like, you're not going to see the level of thought put into the minority perspective in every X-Men comic that you're seeing here, is kind of the sense that I get about it. So that's just one thing to consider. There's also, I mean, this doesn't have convoluted ass bullshit and fucking world ending crap happening in it too. So that's definitely worth considering.
Like, this is my... I do like the wacky, goofy, time-hopping, galaxy-spanning, cosmic X-Men stuff. I like that. There's a place for it. But if it was ever the basis of an entire run, I would get bored really quick. Because, like, this is... For me, this is, like, my X-Men. I do like the down-to-earth...
Thoughtful. Yeah.
More, thoughtful soap opera, more human stuff. And the wacky sci-fi time hopping galaxy stuff, that's the occasional treat, you know? But this is... I'm kind of annoyed because we're never going to get... I don't like, having read this, I don't think we're ever going to get, now that X-Men is going to Marvel, I don't think we're ever going to get the really messed up, potentially like really hard hitting rendition of this that we could have gotten. Because I don't see, because Fox wouldn't have done it back in the day. In the early days, I can totally see that. But if they had just rebooted, given that they're more willing to do R-rated stuff, we totally could have gotten a very, very surreal, heavy-hitting, like, remake of this.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Other stuff worth talking about in this. We didn't talk, oddly enough, much about just the portrayal of the X-Men team in here.
Kitty Pryde, best. She's the best. She is the best X-Men. I will not hear a word against her, ever.
Okay.
She's also the best member of Guardians of the Galaxy, even though she's never should have been on the Guardians of the Galaxy. But by default, she's the best Guardian of the Galaxy.
Yes, Terry?
I think my 3 or 4 favorite X-Men of all time are all in this book. I just realized, but I say I just realized because I don't even think the book is about these X-Men guys, the team. Like, I don't really care about them. They're just there because they happen to be the one. No, not that they were bad or not that the interactions weren't cool. Because they seemed like a family. It was cool. But the book's about the whole religious, like, a war against them and stuff. Like, to me, Magneto is like Magneto, and then there's the X-Men, but I don't really go into who the team is. Oh, well, Magneto, Xavier, and then the X-Men are there.
Yeah, I think you could say this is much more Magneto, Xavier, and Stryker's story. Maybe Kitty as well.
Yeah,
she did quite a bit of it.
But my, like, all-time favorite X-Men are all in this book, and it's like, they're just like nobody's.
Wow. Can I just point something out that I thought was really funny, and I kind of laughed very audibly whenever I. Whenever they're doing this training simulation, they all have to, like, test how they work as individuals, but also how they work as a team. So Wolverine has to get out of this cage without cutting the bars. So he tries to pick the lock with one of his claws and fails. So then Nightcrawler has to try and, like, rescue him. So he decides to then, oh wait, we need to, like, get some weight on this platform beneath me to turn off the simulation. So instead of that big, obviously heavy machine, I will cut this chain to drop this mostly empty cage with a 5-foot Canadian guy and a German devil elf, and that will be enough weight. So he cuts the thing, and then he fails to even get out, and Nightcrawler has to get him out. Okay, so Wolverine only did like 2 things, and he failed at both of them. When they're calculating up their scores as to how they worked as solo and teams, Kitty Pryde got 98.2%. Averages. So total. So Kitty Pryde got 97.9%. Colossus 96.8%. Nightcrawler 96.7%. They all did useful stuff. They all actually contributed. Wolverine, who only did 2 things and he failed at both, got 99%.
Because he relied on.
Because you know what? He may have failed, but he looked damn cool failing. So that gets extra.
That's how you do it, man. Oh man. It's funny.
I just do like it's just you remind me.
Go ahead, Terry. Go ahead.
When you can finish, I'll ask after you finished.
Oh no, it's just whenever you said like some characters are in the background and they're kind of useless in this, that just reminded me of like, yeah, Wolverine's kind of useless in this. Yeah. He's just there because he's cool, which is fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes,
where
sorry.
It began. Well, to end it, I wanted to ask you guys a question before the end, because I just wanted to know, like, if you were in not necessarily the Marvel universe, but if you were in the universe with mutants like these, and you went to this big event, maybe, or you saw it on TV, the Stryker was doing. Before the whole big showdown, like, what would your thoughts on mutants be? Like, if you were in this world, would you think that they had rights? Would you see them as humans? Do you think that they shouldn't be prosecuted? Stuff like that. Where do you fall on the matter?
That's
well, I would actually be very racist against mutants, and I mean, like, it's such a weird question because. I mean, socially, I consider myself very progressive and whatnot, and so I can't really see the situation in which I wouldn't kind of be on the mutant side, even with Magneto kind of being a bit crazy from time to time. So no, I tend to just say, yeah, I'd be kind of shitty with Stryker and like hoping that. When the X-Men showed up, Cyclops blasted his head off or something.
Okay, and what about you, Robert?
Like, I wouldn't be sort of like, wow, mutants are evil just for the state, just by virtue of they have powers. But if I was in a room and a dude like ripped the roof off the like auditorium with the power of his mind, I wouldn't be thinking, oh my god, they're a danger to society. I would be running out the door with shit in my pants. Like, I'd just be scared shitless, literally. I don't know. It's one of those questions. I honestly I think I lean towards like Ian's bit of like yeah, like they're people are people. I would be more along the lines of judge them as individuals based on their actions. But like I said, the likes of Magneto ripping up buildings and stuff, I would be all like, he's scary. I'm scared of him. But then I'd see the X-Men being all heroic and stuff. I was like, they're good dudes. But these guys are scary. But these guys are good. But these guys are scary. So it would be more of a sort of like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How about you, Terry?
Yeah, there's no ambiguity for me. I come down very firmly on one side, and that's the side of the guys developing the mutant collars and the cure and all of that. Like I like these are like weapons of mass destruction. These aren't like it's these are like I don't want to say they're monsters, but these are dangerous individuals, and maybe like personally they should be able to live lives, but they shouldn't be able to live them with their powers. Like they think there have to be there has to be something put in place to get rid of these powers. Like there's no question for me. Like a little kid is born blue and he can teleport. So I'm sorry, you need to be something needs to be done so that you can't teleport or whatever. I'm not gonna be rude to you because you've got blue furry skin, but if you can teleport, you need to stop that right now.
You need to stop the teleport. Wow.
Like,
damn harsh.
Have you tried not teleporting?
Yeah.
Like, no,
I don't know. Like, there's definitely that whole thing because they show like, oh, a kid just blows up one day, or like Scott. Yeah. Scott just like randomly has migraines one day, and the next day his eyes start shooting fucking lasers. It is terrifying on one regard, but I mean, at the same time, when you're saying in this world, you're also in the world with fucking like Tony Stark jetting around in a robot suit left and right, and like spider power people coming around. Like, what is that okay? But this isn't okay.
No, it's not.
Well, I was thinking purely in an X-Men universe with only X-Men, but
yeah, that was the question. But in terms of the whole Marvel universe, I'm the same way for all of it. Like powers.
Yeah, you're just gonna like fucking move out to like fucking Kansas or whatever, so you don't have to fuck with any of this shit. No one ever invades Kansas unless you're in Smallville.
Is it fair to say, Terry, that you are for the Sokovia Accords?
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, if I was a mutant, for starters, I would have like, given my luck, I would have like a really shitty mutant power.
Boy!
Oh God. But I would, if I was a mutant and I would have had like totally awesome powers, I would totally like try to do the superhero thing. But I think after a while, I would just get really bored or like really annoyed, and I would probably just like, screw it. I've got my like if I was hypothetically Magneto powers, I would be all like, screw it. I'm going to do what Magneto did. And the one time he actually had a good idea, and I'm going to build my own island and screw you guys, make my own society with blackjack and hookers. In fact, get the society and the blackjack.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to end it on that note. Everyone, thanks very much for watching Comic Book Club. Robert, Terry, thank you very much for joining this episode of Comic Book Club. Hopefully we'll get more people in here again. I want like 5 to 6 talking heads, so we gotta work on that part. Yeah.
I've been trying to get my friend to join in, but that dude just does not want to buy trades.
Ah, bastard.
I know.
Well, again, libraries. People don't know enough about this because no one ever bothers to think of it, but most libraries have comics in trade form. You can find stuff there, and so that way you won't have to buy it, and you can still read it legally. So things for people to think about. All right, everyone. Until next time, I'm the philosopher. Oh, no, this isn't Geeky Gentleman. All right, until next time, bye.